So this is really interesting. As Aaron said before the break, the headline immediately grabs your attention. Why is everyone so unhappy at work right now? Well, this is based on a new survey. It's done in the States. It shows that workers are more dissatisfied at work, even more so now than they were during the pandemic. Even for people who've gotten raises, they've gotten more time off work or have a more flexible schedule, they can work from home some of the time, they are still just not happy in their jobs. Vanessa Fuhrmans is Deputy Bureau Chief of Career and Workplace at the Wall Street Journal, and she joins us now. Thank you so much for your time today, Vanessa.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what is going on? I suppose that's the first and foremost question. Like, you would have thought things would get better post-pandemic with more job flexibility. What is happening? Why are people so unhappy?
Yeah, well, you're right to point to the paradox here, and that's what made us want to dig deeper into this whole subject because, I mean, we look very much all the time at how people feel about their work lives, and what we were noticing was that, we thought people were really unhappy in the thick of the pandemic. But it turns out not just the studies we cite, but others show pretty consistently that workers are just unhappier than they have been even when they were at the height of burnout and stress and juggling remote work and, children not being able to go to school. Even as we seem to be going back to normal, the stress and the frustration remains. I think a big part... Oh, go ahead.
No, please go on. I think you're about to answer what I was going to ask.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many sources of this, but if I were to say, what the common thread is, it's about expectations. I think people really launched into a reckoning of their work lives during the pandemic, what they wanted, what they realized wasn't working so well, and their employers have wanted to move on and go back to normal, and workers are still wrestling with all of these questions. Commutes, work-life balance, being micromanaged, all those sort of things.
Yeah, it's like we got a taste of more autonomy and more work-life balance, although arguably it was worse for many people during the pandemic, trying to take care of kids and do their jobs at the same time. But we felt like we were more our own bosses, I think. So is that kind of the main thing that's coming into play here? We had a taste of it. Now we're supposed to be back to normal, and we're like, no, normal doesn't work.
Right. Yes. Like we spoke to one woman who I just thought was, she really resonated with me, and I think probably with a lot of readers. But she talked about how she recently was called back to the office 2 days a week this year. And she said, she knows pre-pandemic, she would have treated that as a gift. She would have been happy working 3 days a week at home. But she got used to that autonomy during the pandemic, and she felt like that new requirement was going backwards. It made her feel like her professionalism was in doubt, that her bosses didn't trust her work quality. And then when she went back to the office, the collaboration, the spirit of sort of the more communal social spirit that existed pre-pandemic just wasn't there. People were more interested in arriving work, getting their work done, going back home. And so I think all those things came together and made her basically sour on the new schedule. She then moved on to a new job that requires 5 in-office days only once a month.
Mm-hmm. I kind of think here we opened this Pandora's box when, of course, the pandemic happened and employers tried to figure out what best way they could to, first of all, deal with people who didn't want to come in at all because they were concerned about the virus at the time, and now deal with people who only want to come back part-time. I found it interesting in the article, though, Vanessa, you say newest workers are among the least satisfied. Why?
Well, yeah, we had so many people switch jobs in the last few years. And so some of them jumped at things that looked bright and shiny, and they certainly jumped at opportunities to make much more money. Mm-hmm. And some of them, I think it boils down to buyer's remorse. Once they got there, they realized, oh, wait, all of these frustrations I had in my old job, a lot of those still exist in this new job. And meanwhile, the pay raises that people jump for have definitely cooled off. They're not as big as they were a year or two ago. And I would add that's the other thing that's really changed in the last year. we still have we have a strong job market, but the hiring is not like it was a year or two ago. And so I think a year or two ago, people felt like they felt more empowered, that they could leave if they didn't like things. Now people feel more stuck.
And then I wonder what employers could or should be doing to change this. Is the volition even there to want to change it?
Well, there is a lot of frustration. There's a lot of wringing of hands among companies, among business leaders. A lot of them spent a lot of money over the pandemic on benefits, boosting benefits such as mental health, child care, even like well-being bonuses and granting people, days just to recharge. The spend on all of that was, by some estimates, more than 20%. And yet they see the same surveys. They know that all of that extra money hasn't translated into happier employees. And yes, they're kind of frustrated about it. Some of them also are rethinking some of these more stringent return to office mandates. If you look at at the data, companies have actually retreated some this year from the more stringent mandates and haven't stepped them up.
I wonder, when you describe the situation and you read a figure like 34% of people dread simply going into work, how does this get fixed? I mean, employers are always looking for a way to make things better, especially when employees aren't happy, disappointed, et cetera. Is there a fix here?
That's a good question. I have spoken to some employers who, and I would say anecdotally, when I look at where there are stronger or more vibrant work cultures, it's where companies are allowing some of those decisions to be made on a more decentralized basis, on a team-by-team basis, instead of a one approach fits all to, being back in the office. And then there is companies that have taken a closer look at what's ailing or agitating employees are encouraging more breaks, encouraging teams or managers to cut down on unnecessary meetings. So there is some fine-tuning happening, but I would say that's happening mostly on the fringes.
I feel like almost all of this boils down to work-life balance. Like I just feel like that is the thing that everybody is constantly in search of, and seemingly never quite getting there from employers to employees.
Yeah, but employers realize that, try to make that better, right? By
Some
giving
do,
chances,
some don't.
come in a couple of days a week, don't. I like the other part of this, which is that sense of camaraderie, if you want to call it that we used to have in offices when they were fully staffed. It seems like for some people that's something that is missed.
Yes. That's another thing that I find really interesting. This whole how we all view remote work. For a lot of us, we're kind of schizophrenic about remote work. We really relish and are very protective over having that freedom and that control over where we work and having a bit more control over our schedules. At the same time, the data show simply too much time alone is not great. We all are, to some extent, or not all of us, but many people complain about feeling more isolated. Even those who show up at the office feel like they're not in sync with the ones who aren't showing up. And as I said, there is more of a, as we call it, a 501 and done mentality. There are fewer happy hours after work. That sort of thing. I think those are all the fun parts of work that haven't quite come back.
So many things we still can't
true.
figure out, huh? Thank you so much, Vanessa. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Vanessa Fuhrmans, she is over at the Wall Street Journal if you want to read it. I just think it's a fascinating piece about why we're all so unhappy at work.